Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Amberly Lago, author of True Grit and Grace. Amberly, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
It is a pleasure. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I've been excited to talk with you.
Me too. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say keep writing, and when you're ready to publish your book, make sure you do your research on the publisher and that it's a good fit for what you want to do with your book.
Absolutely, and we're not going to name names, but you and I had a nice chat before the show, and you were sharing about your publisher that you had, and that you've now recently got your rights back, and that you've actually published your book again. So if you want to share a little bit about that, please feel free to do so. Again, we don't need to name names, but I know that you did.
I won't name names. No, I don't want to talk bad about anybody. I just want to try to save any new authors out there.
Yeah.
The suffering that I went through, it was just, I think you have to be so you have to do your due diligence and really research who you're going to work with and make sure it's a good fit, because, I was a first-time author. I never even imagined I would write a book. And so when I did, and I had a publisher that was like, yeah, we want your book, I was like, oh my gosh, a publisher wants my book. And so I asked I did ask a couple of people, researched and asked a couple of people, and it was, they had said I wouldn't work with them again, but I kind of chose to ignore that because I thought I want my book published. And so I went ahead and signed with them, and nothing that was, I shouldn't say nothing, but I can just about say everything that was promised didn't come through. And so at the end of a year, I ended up having to hire a lawyer, get my rights back. And because I do a lot of conferences. I just finished a TED Talks. I just got back in town from speaking in front of 3,500 people where they're promoting my book. I wanted to get my book up on Amazon again as soon as possible. So, I didn't know when I first wrote my book, the publishing process when you go through a publisher is about a year at least, the process from start to finish. And I didn't feel that I really had the time to wait a year before I got my book back up on Amazon. So I went ahead and self-published and got it right back up and in place. But it's been a real journey, a real learning process. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, they're going to write a book and make a lot of money. And it's really just a very expensive business card. I'm just saying.
No, and that's exactly what it is. One of the things with our company, we always talk about truth and service. And one of the things that we make clear from the start is 70% of our clients are business owners that are wanting to use that book for the C word, for credibility, to take their business to the next level and to have a much more warmer intro with their clients. So that's what we specialize in. But we are clear from the start. It's like, if you expect to be a millionaire based on your royalties, you're going to be in for disappointment. Now, can you make some decent money on the front end with royalties? Yes, but you make the life-changing money on the back end with getting crystal clear with your offer, from getting those people that read your book, from readers to a strategy session to a potential client with you, with your coaching services, with your public speaking, with whatever things that you want to offer, and you treat that book like a product launch. And you always need to be clear about that. One thing that's always frustrated me are some of these publishers that promise people the moon and the stars. With us, we don't do that. We are very direct. We're very clear. We always say, hey, our goal is that you recoup your investment within the first 30 to 60 days working with us. And typically, as long as they're willing to implement our strategy, that is never an issue. But the main thing is you have to be clear on your offer. You have to be clear on the product that you are going to have. And of course, you have to be credible. And what makes you credible is the knowledge that you have that is brought into that book that connects with the person so much that they want to work with you. And that is how you utilize a book correctly.
That is so true. Amen to that. Yes. And I originally wrote my book with my mindset was I want to write a book to give me a platform in which to share my message and open some doors for me and give me credibility. And that's what it did. But I think communication is key, and you have to work with a publisher that you can trust.
Yep.
That when they tell you they're going to do something, that they follow through with it. I think that just that communication is key because, I'm going to work on a second book, and I want to work with a publisher that I can depend on who has integrity. And so I think that's really important.
Well, it's one of the things I don't think a lot of people get, and I think publishers as well. Our mentality is that we're going to work with our client for their entire lifespan of their book. So their first book, their second book, their 10th book, all the way through. But we're going to do that because we're going to do such a good job of taking care of our clients, and they're going to be so happy with that they're going to do two things. One, they're going to continue to work with us, and that they would hopefully recommend us to other people. And the reason we want to build that relationship is through communication, through give them creative control. We give our clients complete creative control in regards to their book, from the cover to the formatting to the editing. We send everything back to them for approval. And the other thing is we always promise a response within 24 hours. And that's it.
That's amazing. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. That's exactly what we do.
That is amazing. That is seriously amazing. Yeah, and you know what? I'm a very loyal person, and if somebody's good to me, I cannot refer them enough. I can't refer them business enough. And that's what it's about. It's about taking care of each other and making sure everybody grows, and I love what you're doing. I'm so happy I met you.
Well, and that's our company philosophy, and that's what makes us different from most other companies, is that, and it's guaranteed. Like, we are always going to be in communication. You have full control over what you want. We want to make sure you're happy with everything because it is a collaboration. And the thing is, you are sharing your vision. I mean, the example that a lot of my guests like to use, it's like giving birth. Well, as a guy, I know nothing about that, but I do know how important the book is, because I've done 14 of my own books. So I get it. I understand the creative process. I understand that you don't want to give necessarily that control to someone else. So that's why you collaborate. That's why I'm such a huge believer in the hybrid publishing model, where you have that collaboration through the publishing part and also through the marketing part, where you are walking them through the entire journey. Because you have to also talk about marketing. You need that just as much as you need the publishing side. And you need to be transparent about exactly how the book's going to go. The systems are going to be in place. Helping people get on podcasts, doing these different things, helping them set up book signings. Because not everyone's going to know that during their first launch.
Oh, marketing is, you can write a book. It can be the best book in the world. But if people don't know about it, you're not going to sell it.
Yeah, it disappears into the Amazon rainforest.
Exactly. I like that. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the publishing process a little bit. So what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part about getting published is just the length of time, the amount of time that it takes from start to finish. I mean, as you're going through this phase, and I don't want to discourage anybody, but it's just it's kind of like training yourself for a marathon, because you think that you're done with the hard part when you finished writing your book. I remember pushing that send button like, oh, the work is done. And then no, then you have to go through the whole editing process, and then
Hmm.
you have to go through the whole interior design process. And then it's kind of tedious where you have to design the back cover, and it has to be a certain amount of words for the back cover, and then the whole front cover and the back and forth. And I could see where the reason I'm like, are you serious when you said you get back to people within 24 hours? I think that is gold, because that part of the back and forth between, edits and interior design and the cover design, that can become pretty tedious. And so I think that just kind of knowing in your mind that it's all a process, and that it's just kind of like I said, training yourself for a marathon. It's just getting through one step at a time, one thing at a time, getting through it. It's very rewarding when you can finally say it's done and it's up on Amazon. The best moment is when you walk into a bookstore and you actually see your book in a bookstore.
Well, and I think one of the things with the process too is you have to realize there's systems for everything. So with publishing, there's a system. The system is this: you get the draft done, you send it to editing, we send back the revisions, you check everything, you make sure you're happy with it. If you are, we move on to formatting. If you're not happy, we fix it. Then we move on to formatting, make sure everything's good with that. If that passes, then we move on to the book cover, and you have to systemize everything because
You definitely need a system in place.
yeah, and it's a process because every one of those things is a collaboration. Now, can we get a book done within a month? Absolutely, but the client has to work as fast as we do. Typically, what we have found is with a lot of our books, it's usually about a 2 to 3 month process to get everything done, but it's still so much better than spending a year to year and a half working with a traditional publisher, because you at least know, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and if you want things to be done right, that's what you have to do.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I turned around and got my book back up, redesigned my cover, I had to design the whole interior, change a few things, make all the corrections on all the mistakes that were in the book, and had it back up on Amazon within a month.
Yep.
hmm
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
I as soon It took me a while to build up my social media platform. So when I started and I got signed with a publisher, I had about, I don't know, like 400 followers on Instagram. And over the past year, I have built that up to over 25,000 followers. And that is just trying to build a rapport with my followers and go out and find, like-minded people and look at their pages and comment back and forth. And it takes a lot of time. I think um, I had to treat my marketing like it was a part-time job. And so actually some days it was more like a full-time job, but I got up every single day and created a post, and I didn't just do it for Instagram. I did it for Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, but I did it as not to just sell, sell, sell. I was giving, giving, giving. Like, I am giving my followers all this information. I'm just giving them all this inspiration and all this hope and all these tips and what worked for me. And then when it came time to finally sell my book, I'm like, oh, by the way, yeah, here, I also have this book that I'm going to sell. And I had developed such a great rapport with all my followers and true engagement with them that they were more willing to trust that my book would be something worthy of reading. And so I did book giveaways and contests on social media. I did some ads. I did ads for, and events. Every time I did a book signing, I always I did a big post about it on Facebook and invited people to come. And I do a weekly newsletter. And so I give a weekly newsletter where I'm giving doses of inspiration, but then I'm also building on that. So when I did launch my book, I invited people to come to the book signing. And at every single book signing across the United States, every single one. Now, I didn't know people in Kentucky or parts of Florida or Miami. I was in Miami, I was in North Carolina, I was in Dallas, all these different areas. And I sold out at every single book signing. In fact, at the Barnes and Noble in Calabasas here near Los Angeles, we sold out of books in the first 13 minutes, and we had a line of people for 4 hours. And that is all to social media and marketing.
Nice.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I'm just saying, I was not expecting that because honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not a marketer. I just did what felt right and I focused on my audience rather than what I could get from them. I focused on what I could give to them.
Well, one thing I always learn too, in regards to any type of social media, in particular, you always have that 5-to-1 ratio. So great pieces of content, and then an ask. 5 more pieces of content or advice or quotes, then an ask.
Mm-hmm. Because it's people always want something, and so I think that if you can, what you can give, what your book can give. It's really important to know your
Yeah.
why you're doing something, and what you're about. And once you know what your brand is, you stick to that. You
Mm-hmm.
don't go veering off of it, trying to do a million different things. Know exactly who your audience is and speak to that audience, and that's how you build from there.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you too. I mean, you mentioned something truly phenomenal. The fact that you started with 400 followers, and it was 25,000 on Instagram. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What are a couple pieces of advice that you would give to our first time authors listening to the show that need to do that? They need to build up that social following to those epic type of levels. What advice would you give them?
I would say, really, you have to invest some time. I mean, it's hard because I have a full-time job. I'm a mom. I also do a lot of speaking and traveling. And so for me, you have to find the time to do it. So I get up at 4:30 in the morning and do what I need to do for my social media, whether that's creating a post and or getting on and engaging with my followers before my day even starts. And then I might look at it in the middle of the day and I touch on it at night. But it's like a job. But also, because my publisher, when I first launched my book, they didn't do any type of marketing. They said it's all up to you. So I was like, okay, I've written this book. I've got to do this. I also hired a publicist, which her first thing was, I don't do any kind of social media. That's up to you. I do.
Oh
So I
man.
thought, okay, no one is going to do this for me. I have to do it for myself. If I really want people to see this book, I am going to have to do this myself. And so I really treated it like a job. And it's just time. It's spending time on it, really getting clear with your message, and really developing your brand.
And what do you feel is the best way to? I know you mentioned posts, but you also mentioned previously also about commenting and following other people. So what strategies did you use there to be able to add more followers?
Um, well, I've had people ask me, well, how did you get so many followers? And I think it's everything in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because just the event that I just went to this weekend, I was the speaker that had the least amount of followers. I mean, I was speaking with people on stage that had millions of followers, and then there was me. So I felt like, oh, I don't have that many followers compared to these other people. So, but what I do have, and I think what matters more than anything, is to make sure that your followers are real, that they are real
Yes.
people. Because if I don't even know if you can do this anymore. I've heard that Instagram has gotten and social media platforms have gotten really strict with robots and that sort of thing. But at one time, you could buy followers, but the
Yep.
only thing is you can buy that number. And because I've had to build my following from scratch, I can now look at someone's account and say, oh, well, they've got 200,000 followers, but they have 2 comments. It doesn't make sense. Or they only have 50 likes, or it doesn't matter so much, I think, about the numbers as it does if you have a legitimate following of people that are engaged with your content.
Yeah.
And by doing that, what I did is I would search hashtags of people that maybe had, like I have a nerve disease called CRPS. I would search that hashtag and look at for people who had that same thing. Or I'm a life coach. I would look for people who were life coaches, and then go comment on their post. And so it's just important to look and see the people that you have that common thread with, that you have something in common with, and comment on their post. It's so much about engaging with other people, sharing their content. And I think one of the things that has helped the most is when I have been able to collaborate with other influencers. And you can, share each other's audience.
And how are you able to do that?
Well, if let's see, if there is someone that is another author that is a best-selling author, and they have, they're about the same size following as you, or you both have something that you can give one another, and you truly believe in their book, then I would do a shout out for their book, or even meet and do a post with them in their book, or do a podcast with them, or interview them in my blog post and put it on my website, and then do a shout out on my social media. So there's all different kinds of ways to collaborate with other influencers, whether that's doing a giveaway together, or, like I said, an interview through the blog post, and then I can share the blog post through all my social media platforms. So there's a lot of different ways to do that.
Excellent. And then I know one of the things that we were talking about before the show was the fact that you were able to get on national TV. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that and how you did it.
Yeah, well, I had hired a publicist who, she had said, well, look, I submit your book to talk shows and magazines, and some blogs, but that's it. And I was like, okay, great. She goes, and I'm not going to make you any promises. And I was like, okay, great, let's do this. And so she submitted my book to the Today Show. And let me tell you, they research you like crazy. They looked at every tweet that I put out. They looked at my audience to make sure I was legit. They looked at pictures. They looked at my YouTube videos. They looked at everything. And I got a phone call from NBC, and they wanted to interview me on their show. And when I first got the call, they said, Megyn Kelly wants to interview you. And I was like, Megyn Kelly? Like, I couldn't even speak. And they were probably thinking, oh gosh, this girl can't even speak. I'm not sure if we do want her on the show. But they flew me to New York, and I was able to do an interview and launch my book, basically launch my book on the Today Show the day that it published. And because it was on national TV, it was a bestseller in 3 categories. My favorite author is Brene Brown. And true story, funny thing, right before my book is launching, I'm like, I don't know how to advertise that my book is going to be on bookshelves in a couple of days. And I told my husband, he comes in my office, and I'm taking pictures of stacks of my books, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm taking a picture of my books stacked up, and it's what Brene Brown did and she's flying to New York. I said, I figure I would advertise mine the same way. And he said, don't you think she's going to be upset if she knows you're doing the same thing that she did? And I said, honey, She is never going to notice a little author, no name author like me. And then lo and behold, the day my book published, Dr. Wayne Dyer was #1. I think it was her brand new book. Brene Brown's book was #2, and my book was #3 on Amazon. So I took a screenshot of that. I was like, I am saving this screenshot forever. So it's just fun. You never know. You just never know. That hard work can pay off.
Excellent. Well, speaking of books, let's talk about your favorite book and what was the #1 thing that you learned from it?
I have so many favorite books. I think probably my favorite would be The Four Agreements. It's an easy read. It's a pretty, you can sit down and read it in one day. And it's really about, not expanding your mind and not, stopping limiting beliefs. And it helps you be a better communicator. And it also helps just in my day-to-day life. Like one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. And so it's a book that I've read that has lasted me, a lifetime of just kind of shifting my mindset.
And for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I would think my favorite quote would be, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I think anything I've ever wanted to do in life, I have been able to achieve because it all starts with belief. And if you believe that you can do something and you do your best and work hard every day to achieve that goal, you can do it. But if there is a doubt in your mind, and if for some reason you're telling yourself you can't do it, then you probably are right. You probably can't, because you're not going to put in the work to do it. It starts with belief.
Yeah, my favorite quote is, what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it will achieve. W. Clement Stone. And I've always believed that my entire life. Is like, whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Amberly, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Please reach out to me at amberlylago.com. It's AMBERLYLAGO.com. And your listeners can also get a free downloadable journal there, because I use a daily gratitude journal every day as part of my morning routine. And it just really, gratitude's my medicine. So I like to share that with all my followers as well.
Amberly, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.